Welcome to a Delco Nerd Network hot take. Guys, if you haven't seen a hot take before, well, it's where a few friends get in a basement. We give our thoughts, we give our opinions on a TV show, a movie, or a game, or an anime. Today, it's going to be an anime, and that anime is Attack on Titan, the final season, part 4. Here to discuss, as always, the triple threat, Chris Trio.
Gooch, I don't have anything cheeky to say, but I'm excited to learn about some Attack on Titan today. How are you?
Yeah, you're excited to learn about the rumbling.
I am, yeah.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Glad you're here.
Absolutely.
Glad you're here. And of course, our guest in the middle, our dungeon master, of course, Mike Mandell. Welcome back, man. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I really enjoyed the final season, so I'm excited
All 4
to talk
parts
about
of it over 2 years.
It's been a long journey.
There you go.
It has.
Fun fact, to get to your house, you're labeled as the dungeon on my thing when I have to type in.
Oh, that's amazing.
You can
do that?
Yeah, on Google Maps.
Well,
you can
I
label
guess you
things.
can name things.
So I just type in the dungeon, and then it takes
Oh,
me
that's
right
awesome.
So
Yeah, because I put home in when I want to.
exactly. I
Right,
have mine
right,
set
right.
at
It's really
home
easy.
too. Yeah, for that. It's good stuff.
Oh, that's amazing.
Things
stuff.
every day
Yeah.
here. So where do we fucking start with this? Mike, why don't you just give us your general impressions? What did you think of the final part of the finality of Attack on Titan? What did you think?
Yeah,
And then
well,
we'll just go
as
from there.
a mostly manga reader, coming into this, it was actually a breath of fresh air. Kind of. I felt like when I
Really?
read the manga version of this, it was so chaotic. A lot of it was hard to follow. You know what I mean? Like Aaron's like huge body in the end, where he's like this huge skeleton centipede. When I was reading that, I felt like I had to go over that a couple times to really understand positioning of characters.
What is he?
What is happening right now?
Right.
And I felt like, honestly, out of all 4 parts of this final season, this last special that they did really captured everything really well. I think they did a great job emotionally and just telling the story in a good way. I really liked it.
Awesome. Yeah. And to reiterate, you're a manga reader, you're watching the sub, I'm watching the dub.
Yep.
It's funny how every time we do an anime, it works out like that very unintentionally. That like somebody I have on is the sub watcher and I'm
Right.
the dub. Like it just works because we can get both perspectives.
And I haven't watched it at all. But continue.
Yeah. True. Trio is here for posterity questions.
Of course,
and
questions. I'm
to
gonna
learn about the
I want to pick some brains.
to
Yeah.
learn about genocide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, God, Attack on Titan as a whole, and honestly, the ending kind of just solidifies it for me, especially like the very end. Attack on Titan, I think, is one of the best narratives ever written. It is very nice to go into something from a writer who knows exactly where they're ending.
Right.
And that's from episode 1. That is rare. You don't get that with shows all that much. You don't get that with movies all that much. I mean, we complain about Star Wars for that kind of shit. It is nice to be like, I forget the writer's name, but he knew where he was going from minute 1. And you can see it through the entire series, through, I'm sure, the manga, obviously, but through the anime. Like, it all connects back to the end, to the beginning. It all just makes sense. And it's like, it's nice to kind of consume something that really started off as one thing and ended completely differently. And not just one turn, but like 3 or 4 major like shifts in tone, in messaging, in themes. Like the show just randomly takes these turns that even at the end are still happening in like the final hour and a half of Attack on Titan.
May I interrupt?
Yeah.
The writer is, I'm going to probably butcher this, Hijami Isayama.
Yeah,
Isayama.
it was like the last name. I was like,
I knew it started with an I.
yeah. But yeah, I love this final part. And what's good about this final part, unlike 3, is it's mostly fighting.
Yeah.
It is narrative heavy, but like the part 3, I think when we were talking with Chris, I'm not sure if you got a chance to watch that episode back, but I think like one of the gripes was like, it's mostly like talking. Like they're not fighting yet. They're leading up to the final battle. But this part was mostly combat, which was really cool. Like, you know, Mappa on full display yet again. It's the animation studio. Just absolutely fucking killing it. And we really pick up right where part 3 leaves off, where Armin asks Eren, like, what do you mean by you're truly free? And they do kind of answer that question. But but that, it picks off that like epic line, and then like I like how they recap it in the beginning too, like, and they play some parts, because I guess it's been for dub and sub a few months, not a year, but a few months between the two. So it's like, all right, here's remember what happened, yada yada. We'll play you like the last 5 minutes of the episode, and then we'll go right into it. Right. And then it starts off with like, okay, that like epic line from Armin, and then everyone's like, okay, like what the fuck do we do now? Like how do we go about this? Yeah, and it it immediately escalates, and shit's just going off the rocker. And I thought it was really cool to just see all the Titans of the past. That was one thing I thought was like really dope. All the different Titans, because I guess we have 9, but we only see like one or two versions of like each of the Beast and the Colossal. Only one Attack Titan. No,
yeah, we get one Jaw. Which is his name? Galliard.
Yeah, Porco.
And that he comes back, and that whole scene was very nice. I really like that.
I knew a lot of what happened.
From the
spoilers and stuff and Twitter. I kind of like just didn't even care.
Sure.
That I was getting spoiled. I was like, this doesn't even affect anything. But I was like, one thing I didn't know all the characters who had died previously. The Titan shifters come back and fight. I mean, they're not like, they're not talking. They're like kind of like,
well, they're in the past, which
right. They're basically like their spirits are coming back and they're like fighting, but like they have no speaking lines. So it's not like they're getting these like last moments.
And these are the Titans, or these are, I'm sorry,
people who were the Titans,
but they're like,
the show and relevant.
And essentially they're stuck in that Titan form because the past, this like spirit realm or whatever, all Eldians, the race of people who have the potential to turn into Titans, are connected in some sort of like weave through this past.
Right. It's like a spirit realm sort of thing.
I'm an idiot. I know nothing about this universe. Give me the like base level. Titans attack a city. I understand that. And people defend the cities. That's like high level what I know.
And going back to kind of what you were saying,
that's season 1, okay.
How many times the scope has changed, I think that's one of the strongest parts of the series. Where season 1 begins with Eren watching his mother get killed as he lives in this town, and it's surrounded by walls. Outside of the walls are man-eating Titans, and they break the wall.
Right.
And they come in, and it's chaos. And fast forward a little while later, we find out that there's a whole world outside of this island that this city with the walls are on. And there's people out there, and they actually want this island to be stuck there because they're the only ones who can turn into Titans.
So it turns into a story of betrayal, of espionage, of political intrigue, of racism, of classism, genocide. It really takes off. And like the genocidal point is really the end. So the idea is Eren gets to a certain point where like it's a very long story, but he essentially becomes aware of everything that has happened with himself and what will happen. So he kisses a character's hand at one point, a character named Historia, who becomes the queen of Eldia.
Who has royal blood, which is very important.
Or a parody, I should say. And through contact with her, he sees the rest of what happens, and he kind of like cracks. And from this point, he realizes that, I mean, we'll get into this as we talk about this part, because he talks about it, but he begins a process called the rumbling, which is the walls on Parody are made from Titans. They're just standing in stone.
Colossal Titans specifically.
Hidden. Yeah. So he destroys the walls, and the Titans begin to march on the mainland and crush it. He, at the end of the rumbling, so he does this. He begins the rumbling, and he gets through most of it. He wipes out 80% of the population
of the world.
Yes,
of the world,
of the entire world.
Okay.
And I love how they do that with that moment when he kisses the hand of the person with royal blood. Is what, season 3 or 2 or something like that, a while ago.
Sure.
End of season 3. Yes, end of season 3.
Now one of my favorite lines where in this final act where he basically admits that once that happened, he lost his mind. Like he went absolutely crazy because every memory from his entire past to the future, everything blended together, and essentially that 80% thing, and we'll get to all of this, but he saw no other futures outside of either I kill everyone or someone else is going to kill everyone.
And his friends are the people who stop him. Armin is his best friend. There's like 3 main characters. Armin, Eren and Mikasa, and they're like the three main protagonists. And Armin and Mikasa really end up stopping him, but like he wants his friends to stop him, but he has to do the rumbling, and he's like, "You will stop me when I'm at 80%. Like that's the best outcome.
Yeah.
Like that's when you'll
Right."
And
he does end up dying.
This is happening in the past because a lot of this final episodes are flashbacks. So Eren actually went and talked to all of the characters and then erased their memory. So he was like, "Look,
and you see that
I'm gonna do
this."
this." Yeah, and he's like, after all said is done, you're going to remember all of this, but the next time we meet, it's going to be a battle to the death.
Right.
And yes, they go into 2 characters in detail, and then the rest of them kind of, it shows them like obviously remembering something. They had a moment too,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know how it came out in the sub, but Armin's voice acting in the dub, oh my god! Like I mean, like he screams like when Mikasa like comes from I guess Eren's corpse and is holding his head, and the way he screams and starts crying is like absolutely insane. Like Armin as the actor who plays him and the character in the show, what a glow up. Kid has a bowl cut in the beginning, looks like a girl, like is it like a dweeb kind of character?
Sure.
Not the strong guy, more the intellect of the group, and now he's the commander of the scouts. He's the one leading the charge against Eren, and he like just like the swath of emotions being displayed by the actors here is fucking insane.
Absolutely, and I agree. And I did see the scene in dub. I'm biased, but of course I like the sub better.
Right.
I actually teared up about 3 separate times during the entirety of the final season. Because of that, because of how emotional it was when he ran, when Mikasa was carrying that head. That was just raw emotion out of that actor.
And I mean, it's funny that Mikasa like, I think kind of gets to the point where she realized, well, it's funny because Ymir puts her down that path to kill Eren, which is interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole the Ymir of it is really interesting, especially it's like, oh, Eren isn't sending the Titans of the past after the Alliance. She is. So there's like so Ymir is like the first Titan from 2,000 years ago. She's the one who starts this cycle of genocide essentially. Where like Marley and Eldia are fighting, and then like this conflict is going on 2,000 years, and she's the reason like the Titans happen. It's because like her emotions of like anger, and she's like a kid at this point. Her emotions kind of like create the Titans for her to like fight back, and essentially she passes it on to 9 other people until she eventually dies. But then that continues.
Yeah. So basically, she's like a slave and to this king who, for one reason or another, she falls in love with, and like he is the worst. He cuts out her tongue, like she can't speak. Like he obviously fools around with other people. Like there's he's a tyrant king, and he
bit of a knucklehead.
Yeah, she has kids with him and everything. Yeah. But during this time, she inherited this Titan power, and her love for him, even with this like godly power, whatever it is, she still didn't like betray him. And the reason that Mikasa in the future you find out is that like her choice to finally kill Eren in the end and not be a slave to that love that she's, because throughout the whole series it's very apparent that Mikasa's always sitting in the background just staring at Eren like
she's like her and Eren like each other, but honestly it's not
won't they a little bit of that
kind
of but no,
it's like, weird it's very weird, it's well done.
Things going on like relationships in this world, in this show, do not take a front seat at all.
Right,
you
they're
can
soldiers.
tell like they're childhood like lovers essentially, but like almost you feel like it might be like a sister kind of view.
Sure.
They never really express. There's a few times it happens, but they never really express like love towards each other.
Which, funny enough, becomes
normal traditional
the
way.
most important aspect of this whole thing, because at any like and Eren shows us this through one of those memories that if at any point Mikasa did tell Eren, "I love you," he would have stopped what he was doing, not killed 80% of the world, and ran away with her. And you see this through a vision where like she's like, why are we here? And he's like, well, we can't go back now. Like all our friends are dead. We left everyone. We ran away.
Right.
Like,
and the cycles of violence still continue.
Yes. So
it's
like
just in a different manner.
And it's another showing of that. When he saw those futures, he realized either I do this or like it's just gonna be worse in the end.
Sure.
Oh, I love it. I really love how
And the
well
idea is
they did that.
I'm sorry,
The rumbling?
I almost said the reckoning. That would always happen regardless, even without him.
But
So
the cycles of violence
So-
will happen actually no matter what happens.
sure.
So one of the last scenes of the show, like Mikasa takes Aaron's head back to their island and buries him under a tree, and you kind of see like the future play out. Society thrives, becomes futuristic. War, nukes the city.
But there's no Titans.
right.
So it becomes more of like a normal,
Yes.
Right.
like
And-
it's just kind of
but it doesn't
society.
end. And Armin says that a lot. He's like, like people have been through this kind of thing before. Like, but like the idea of he kind of like, sort of, what am I trying to say? He accuses Eren of is stealing humanity's hope of fighting back. Because like even though like we're in the lowest point and there's been so many deaths, 80% of humanity has just been wiped out. Like we still have to have hope, and like you're taking that hope away from us. So it like
Because it's brutal. Like, well, you watch 80% of the
I was
world
gonna
get,
say,
like,
and it's just
people
them
falling
getting
off.
eaten and
So
shit too,
there's a-
right?
there's a
Is it
lot
all
of-
are they like?
So these Titans specifically
just
are just
walking over
they're
people.
colossal
They're
Titans.
huge.
They're
I see.
like 10 times the size of a regular Titan, and there's
Okay.
thousands of them, and they just
Literally just
continuously are
walk
walking,
over.
and it's basically flattening the entirety
see.
of
I mean,
everything.
I mean, they use this language like we'll stamp humanity flat, like just walk
like
over.
bulldozing basically literally
Right,
everything.
right.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
just wiped out. And there's a lot of scenes, and I like this one scene where they used to convey the rumbling happening all over the world to all sorts of different cultures, because you don't really see a lot of the world or understand really how big the world
Is
is.
it Earth?
You don't see
Or
the
is it like
world,
a
no.
different? Okay,
Earth
it's-
adjacent.
sure. It's
like-
an Earth-like place. Like
I don't even know.
Like a Gears
I
of
would
War.
say yeah.
Yeah. It's
Like
definitely
Gears
like
of War, yeah, it's
You
like-
know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
not Earth, but like
But
it's
it
kind
is-
of Earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right, I
But
would
they
say
never
so.
like outright say it's not or is. Do they like name the world that they're on?
Planet?
no. So the only thing you like
name
for the first like
continents.
couple seasons, all you know is they're on this island called Paradise
Well, you
Island.
don't even know
Yeah.
it's an island.
Yeah, you don't. You just know that they're in the city of walls,
And it's
that's
one
it.
group of people, but like that's not the case.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
find that out 3 seasons later.
I see.
And there's really no hint to it. Like there's a few episodes that's like, here's what's really going on. Here's why this is the way this is. And Marley is keeping like they're sending the Titans to the island, and they're persecuting Eldians, injecting them with Titan serum and throwing them into Paradis, and they just walk to the walls. All of these people.
And that's just to contain the Titans?
It's to contain the people on the island. To hold them
'Cause
back.
they're the
Hold them
island
back.
Because
Del-
those people can become Titans?
Yes.
Eldians can,
Right.
yes.
And,
And there's
people on the
only
island.
there's only a 9
Eldians are on the
shifters who can come back and forth.
I see. Oh,
Essentially, and Marley has almost all of them. But the whole thing started when Aaron's father stole the Titan, the attack Titan from.
Aaron Kruger.
Attack on
Yes.
Aaron Kruger gives him.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that Shinjeki no Kojin is the name of it in Japanese, and it means attack Titan.
Sure.
And translate to English is attack on Titan.
Right.
Because in the end, Aaron has the attack Titan, the founding Titan, and I guess the Warhammer Titan.
Yes, he
He
gets
has all three,
Warhammer,
which
yeah.
is that was the previous.
So this sounds like
See,
literally it's like the like mythical Greek era of this further future that becomes
it's
normal.
not-
and
it's-
obviously it's real.
In
No, I know
terms
like
of technology, it's probably like 1800s ish.
Right. Yeah,
and that was another point of like why Marley's much more technologically advanced. The idea of sending the Titans back
So, yeah,
is they
they have
never
tanks.
technologically
I see.
get to a point where they could use technology to kill
Get
the
up,
Titans because
yeah.
they never really have the opportunity.
Like they're
Right,
flying
yeah.
around on like ropes and stuff. Essentially,
see.
like it's a
Okay.
little bit more. And
Is it like Avatar-ish level, The Last Airbender level technology? Would you say?
they actually have
Like-
guns and
Oh,
stuff like
okay.
that.
All right,
Like they're
all right,
they're using
all right,
like,
interesting.
but they're using flintlocks.
I
And
see.
then finally you get to Marley, and they have tanks, jets.
Okay.
I don't know if they have jets, but they have
well,
Like
the-
fighter
full.
planes
They have
or-
a
yeah.
train going.
I see.
there's an
Yes.
Asian clan called the Azumabito clan who make what they call a flying boat. It's just a plane,
Right,
But
okay.
they don't really.
Yeah.
They're not there yet.
Sure.
They don't really know what to call it, so it's
Right.
the flying boat. But that's how they use a plane to essentially get to Eren. Like
Right.
he's a giant like centipede like rib cage thing with a head
Yeah.
on it. So you can't just like climb up it. So they have to fly up into it. So that's how they get on top of him, and they start the battle. Yeah, I wanted to go back to the plot really quick because we
yeah.
are split up into 3 chapters. But so it kind of starts with Armin getting captured and then being in paths, and we have that one scene where he's like he's kind of like his body is immobilized and he's in that paths dimension
And
thing,
he's yelling at himself.
like talking to himself, like he's like over his body
In his mind place.
And he, sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's basically like, you know, he's like, you stupid idiot, and he's like you never amount to anything. And he's like yelling at himself, and he's kind of like being, well, like I said earlier, like he's like kind of like the not strong one. He's the intellect, but like now he's in a fight and he gets like disabled like in like moments. So he's, and everyone else is fighting you know, the Titans that Amir is sending after him. So like it's all different kinds of Titans we've never seen before from the past. That's the idea of, it's like, okay, like that was a Titan shifter 200, 500, 1,000 years ago. It's like that's where she's getting these forces from. So
basically,
to
just
fight Eren.
to go back just a little bit and fill in the detail of that. So they arrive on the Titan, and essentially their plan is we need to find where Eren is because he can move his body
somewhere.
Anywhere around this giant
Within
thing.
okay.
And the characters even acknowledge they get there. They're like, "What are we supposed to do? This thing is huge."
Yeah.
And
how do we
So
where do we begin? Yeah.
one of the Titans like goes to the head, and quickly they realize like, all right, we're not going to be able to use our plan. We probably need to kill Eren first of all, but second of all, Army, you need to
trying
go.
to avoid killing Eren.
And-
Right, yeah.
They're really trying.
So
to
I actually
do
want to
it.
know what this is in English. But so he's about to bite himself and go colossal Titan and just on top of Eren just launch down and just break him.
Yeah.
And an okapi, I think it's called
it's
in
an
Japanese.
okapi.
Okay,
Yeah,
so they
it's the
say
same,
in English.
It's the same word. It's like this.
It's like a pig Titan, just like grabs him with his
it's
tongue
like
and eats
a
him.
pig cow thing.
Yeah,
like,
it's very
a
weird.
real animal, but
Yeah.
they keep saying it, and it's like, how do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Like in the midst of like this show is really serious. There's no fan service or anything like that,
Yeah.
but they do kind of get the jest in when they can.
Sure.
And they're like, you know,
Moments
one
of
of, the,
levity.
one of the characters is like, oh, like the Okapi Titan, and they're like, what are you looking at? Like, what is that? Like, I'm like, they're like really far, and they're like looking away, and Annie and
Well, so they're saying with a pig Titan, and then the people from Marley are like, "What? Well, what's a pig? What do you mean?" And the one says, "Oh, it's an okapi," and then that group is like, "Oh, I know what you mean now," and the rest of
and
them
they're
are like, "What are you talking
Yeah, like, we're
about?"
like, I don't know what that is. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to be more specific.
But that thing eats him and then puts us into that place in the past
Right,
where
so
now
he's, like, keeping
Armin's
him in his
yelling
mouth or
at
something
himself.
like that.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Peak, who is the card Titan from Marley. So we kind of have the alliance is like we have three characters who infiltrate Parody in the beginning of the show, and they essentially are sleeper agents. They train with the group, and at one point they kind of lose their shit and eventually just kind of crack. One character is like, I'm just gonna reveal myself and like fuck this, like I'm done. Like I can't live like this double life.
Right.
Like we've become friends with these people, but we're not friends. And at the end of the thing, like they both kind of realize like we were friends, even though we were fighting a war against you guys. Like we became one of you. So that's kind of what happens at the end. The groups kind of reunite and put aside the differences. To save the world, which is so funny because there is a scene in the part 2 where Connie like wakes up Ryan and he's like, "What are we doing?" He's like, "Saving the world." Like I'm like, yeah, like really. Just blunt.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. So Pete goes to the head with the dynamite, and then another group is essentially like fighting. Levi is here obviously as well. We talked about the Paz dimension stuff, and there is a part where we talked about in the beginning where those characters who died switch over. There's a character named Zeke, and he's a Marleyan who he's an Eldian who lives in Marley, who is so. Understand that the Eldians in Marley are essentially like Jews in Nazi Germany.
I see.
They're treated with
Yeah.
armbands.
Yeah.
It's the same deal.
Right.
And they are a special fighting force, and they have this Titan power because when you have the Titan power, you die in 17 years. That's it. So they're the ones chosen to do this kind of shit. And he kind of comes to this realization where the only way to stop this is to euthanize our race, the Eldians, the race he is.
Yeah.
We have to just stop being born.
Yeah.
Humanity was born and put on this earth to procreate. That is
Zeke is actually Aaron's brother too.
Yeah, he's
just to
half-brother.
give that. Yeah.
I see.
yeah.
Okay.
There's so much here that
Yeah.
of
course.
But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and like so, like he wants to do this euthanization plan, and it's just like, dude, we can't just wipe the fucking race out. Like it's almost more ridiculous than the genocide that Eren wants to do.
Which I think is actually a really interesting part of this because weirdly enough, though, it's like it's also a good option in terms of the greater good of things. That's what,
Yeah.
like, it makes you question it, because at that point, all right, the Eldians are like 20% of the world,
Sure.
maybe.
All right, Mike. Let's
So-
hear
so-
your pitch here for genocide. I want to.
Oh,
Yeah.
last episode.
Well,
I mean,
actually, this is a pitch against genocide, because his plan was not to just kill everyone right away,
Right,
but
yeah.
to use the Titan power rather than to cause the rumbling, because the Titan power is strong.
Mm-hmm.
It could use the Titan power to just make it so that if you're Eldian, you can't have kids. This is the last generation
Right.
of Eldians. Everyone who's Eldian will live their life, and then they'll die.
Yeah.
And then it'll be peaceful and over. Now,
right. There
does
won't be
that...
conflicts because one of the sides is
Yeah,
taken out.
but at the end of the day, which we find out, as Aaron said, all the futures he saw, no matter what, okay, now Eldians are dead, but the Marlians are still going to conquer everything else, and then there's still going to be war. And there's still going to be Titans, which they now have access to all of them. So that future that Aaron essentially chose was because that was the only future that had no Titans.
Oh,
in it.
interesting. Okay.
And that's what was important to him. So his victory wasn't peace, but it was removing the Titans
from the equation. Whereas, like, if they did do that, like you said, they'd still have some Titans,
Yes.
and all the rest of them would be gone.
Yes,
I see.
and now all his friends and everything are dead, and they don't have a future. And you know, he has a weird relationship with Historia, but like a big
Who's Zeke or Aaron?
A big driving factor for Aaron is not like, because they were gonna like force Historia to like breed, so like because she has royal blood, and to activate these strong Titan powers, you have to have royal blood,
Okay.
which Aaron doesn't have. So he has to physically touch
someone
with it to activate it.
I see.
Zeke becomes that person for the acting of the rumbling.
Okay.
Which we'll get to as the plot continues there. But yeah, no, I think that was a really cool way to just make you think about the ending. I'm like, all of the different options, they were all terrible.
It is a
so
deep
many
thought.
people.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, like, and the kind of like, I guess the deep thought is like, do you think like Aaron is right in what he's doing? And it's like, doesn't really seem to be any
Seems
other
like
option.
Yeah.
It seems like the best of the worst options.
The Marlians' persecution of the Eldians, and even in this episode, there are still people remaining on this fort. It's called Fort Salta. It's on this big mesa, and there are Eldians there who have been persecuted by the Marlians and some Marlian military forces and some other people. So there's a good mix, and at a few different points, they are still fighting amongst each other. No, they're going to be wiped out in minutes while the Alliance is off fighting. And they are still squabbling over race, like in the face of death. Like, you know, they're like the Eldians try to approach like the military. I guess they're just really sitting there like kind of watching what's going on, and they approach them. I kind of really forget.
So at this
I think
point-
they just show up and they're like, "Hey, like we're here," I guess, and they're like, "Stop! Like don't fucking move."
No, they
Like,
actually say, at this point, the rumblings, you know,
has
here.
stopped.
And no, it's still coming, but it's here, and then they're
yeah,
coming
it's
toward,
still going. Yeah,
like
you're right.
they're at a military base, and they're all just like watching with binoculars, like they're coming, but they're also witnessing the battle of like everyone on top of Aaron. So it's still moving, but it's happening. At this point, though, the Eldians, like a group of them runs up and just says like, we need help with our injured, and the soldiers are like, no, get the fuck out of here, we don't have time for that. And also like, screw you, like, and they're all aiming guns at them, and everyone's like, yo, like what the heck, like this is happening. And it cuts away to, you just hear a gunshot get fired, and someone on one of the I guess at this point the Falco flies over in his flying Titan, and
another character
they
we
hear and they're
talked
like, wow, even in the face of this, they're still fighting. And they actually say that line
Right, they're
specifically.
still going at it. Yeah.
Although it's revealed later that it wasn't, they actually stopped the fighting.
Right.
there.
So the general of the Marlian army kind of like unloads his gun in the air.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so funny. A little bit later, once they end up blowing up the dynamite on Aaron's head, so it falls off, and this centipede thing. It's called like the source of all living matter. It's basically like a centipede, spirit centipede looking thing from like Bloodborne.
Sure.
Kinda.
It's exactly a good, very
Yeah.
good description.
Yeah, and
it.
if it reconnects with Aaron, it can kind of
It
rumbling
is the
stops.
Titan. Yes,
yeah,
like,
it is
it's
the
everything.
source of the Titans, and it can turn other people into Titans. So it emits this gas that turns all the Eldians in the fort into Titans, and they start going after Aaron.
So we are a little bit ahead though right now, because
Right. Real quick.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they turn back into humans after Aaron dies, and then now that commander's like, fuck you. like he's back to his ways. Like he just saw them turn and like try to like basically like he could have killed them all. but they didn't because they were being controlled. But like that conflict is still there, even though everything's gone. Like you can't be a Titan anymore, and they're still at each other's throats. There's this quote from season 3, and it's in the more political parts. We're learning about Marley as a country. And I forget the context. It's one of the intermission screens with a quote on it. And I think this is like the show. For as long as people hold firm to different beliefs, there will always be an enemy. That is the show. It doesn't matter what your belief is, as long as you have one and you believe in it, you will have an enemy.
Yeah, right.
There will naturally be an enemy. And I'm like, that's like, you could put that quote in like a lot of different perspectives. Well, no, and it does seem
like you're exemplifying. Like, it's funny because at first, like the way you're explaining, I'm like, well, yeah, but they do turn into like bloodthirsty monsters that kill everyone. So I kind of get a little bit of it
is out of fear. Yeah.
So, but like there is like that point of once you get to the end, though, like you're saying, it's like it's over, but they're still fighting.
So the thing is, though,
it's a conflict continues. The cycles
no matter what,
never end.
The weird thing is, though, it's a curse, and the only reason they're turning into these bloodthirsty things is because Marlians are making them turn into them.
So that's fucked up.
They don't have to be turned into them.
I see.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
so
they are persecuting them.
They're literally like
the
injecting
Nazis
them with
persecuted the Jews.
Like something.
Okay.
Yeah.
They put them into camps. They put them in different towns. They wear armbands to signify who they are.
If you join and you sacrifice yourself to be a Titan, then like your family gets to be honorary Marlians and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
so
like,
you get more privileges. A lot of families like want their kids to be the warrior candidates so they can have a better life. And Rhina's mom is really selfish like that. Like she wants her son to do this so that she can have a better life, but at the end it's kind of
like he gets accepted in it, and there's a scene where like he's like accepted in it, and it's like, okay, he dies in 16 years, that means, and he's a little tiny boy. And the mom's like, it shows them hugging, and then it like pans around and it shows her face, and she's like
smiling,
crying, but she's smiling, and
she gets to live a good life.
And finally, which
she can always have another kid,
pays off in the end though, where like, Aaron's whole thing, like that he tells everyone, is he got rid of the Titan power, which also cancels out anyone who was going to die in 16 years because they don't have that power anymore. Okay. So when Reiner goes and tells his mom, like he kind of is embarrassed. He's like, well, I'm not the Titan anymore. And he thinks she's going to hate him.
Right, not like
him.
At
that point, she gets redemption where she's like, thank God.
I'm a piece of shit.
I only need you.
There's a few other characters, Annie being one of them. Annie's father trains her to be this killing machine, essentially. Yeah. So she can be a warrior candidate and he can have a better life. And like it is interesting to see, like, even the people persecuted are not really good people either.
Because these are the people who originally, Annie, Berthold, and Reiner are the ones who were sent from Marley to go break the wall and started everything.
And they become scouts and they think they're one of them, and then they
like the colossal Titan that Berthold is kicks open the wall, and that's how it all started. And you don't see that till way later, because all you see in the beginning is this Titan looks over the wall and then just breaks it. Yeah. And it's like
oh shit.
We were talking earlier about like seeing the world perspectives of the rumbling. There are a lot of scenes of people getting trampled, but there is a scene where there are hundreds of thousands of people up against the cliff, and people are just falling off and getting trampled, and it's all in black and white, but this baby is in color, and this mother with a baby is like holding her baby up, and we see this mom in the show earlier. Aaron sees her and he starts crying because he knows he's gonna kill her, and she's pregnant at the time, and he knows he's gonna end all these people's lives when he's
toward the end. He's going nuts.
They go to Marley, they like infiltrate, and they're like all together at this point still.
Right.
And he's just like, he knows he's gonna kill all these people,
right?
All of them. So he's kind of like holding this weight on of like, not like glorious purpose, but like the opposite of that, like like.
It's like Thanos. He's like, he knows what he has to do.
Right. Yeah. The burden of unglorious purpose, essentially. But yeah, so the baby, like the mom falls off, but the baby gets picked up by another guy, and the baby gets sent forward by people. It's really powerful. Mm-hmm. But then the rumbling stops. Everything stops, and they're just like.
Yeah, because simultaneously as it's happening,
they're fighting.
Armin has woken up himself in the past where he was yelling at himself.
Okay.
And when he wakes up, he's still in the past, but he realized, oh wait, I'm in the past. And he basically turns around, and like 3 feet away from him is Zeke, just sitting there playing with a sandcastle because he's lost his mind so much.
And this realm has no time, so he's been in there for like not that long, but it
feels like ever.
Yeah, and
his nails are growing out. Yeah.
They have some deep conversation and all
Going
that.
back to the euthanization.
Yeah,
stuff.
and where this is how the rumbling stops, though, is Armin gets through to Zeke,
and basically gives him hope.
Yeah,
again,
with a
humanity.
simple analogy of, Armin picks out of the sand this leaf that shouldn't be there, and he's looking at it, and he's basically like, oh, this is the same leaf that I remember running through the trees and racing with Mikasa and Eren, when Eren was always first and Mikasa always let him win, and then I was always behind. But what gave me joy wasn't, winning or losing, it was just being there. And while he's saying all this, it switches over. Now you see Zeke's perspective, and he sees a baseball instead. And I thought that was really cool because the way the dialogue was, he was like, where did you get that? And it flips back to Armin. He's holding the leaf. And even though he's holding the leaf, he's still like, I don't know, it was just here. But it's actually a baseball to Zeke. And that baseball, it starts showing memories of Zeke and Eren's dad throwing a baseball.
Zeke and Salva.
Oh, yeah.
Basically his father figure in the military.
Yes.
Okay.
And he's the one who kind of like began the euthanization plan with him. So kind of like a mentor, his actual father figure, not his actual dad who was grooming him to be this like essentially like fanatical figure of like the idea was like that Eren's dad was going to like start a rebellion and it failed, and then he tries it again with Eren.
And he was using Eren and Zeke to do it. So Eren's dad is not necessarily a good guy.
Kids to
yes.
Stop.
For his own ends,
Yeah.
Well, forever. It's weird. It's deep.
But he's going about it in a very fucked up way.
Yes.
He's grooming his children.
And as kids, they both grew up kind of resenting that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
They didn't want the zoo. It's like that scene from. He's like, I thought you wanted this. The meme. He's like, no, it's your dream, Dad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
pretty much.
But like,
Pretty much.
And I mean, there's a scene where, since Eren sees like the moment where he is given the Titan serum by his dad, because we don't really know that until later, and so it's him giving to him as a kid, but also the adult version of him standing next to him, and he's like, basically like being like, you have to fucking do this, you coward. And he's like basically like in his ear, like making him go insane.
That's why he goes nuts.
Because a part of the Attack Titan's power is he can see the future and the past. So Eren's dad was the Attack Titan, so he can see what he's gone through as the Attack Titan.
And it works through, basically the Attack Titan can see the future and past memories of every person who is the Attack Titan.
Makes sense.
So furthering that, at the end, it actually shows Eren
like
standing there watching himself get born. Like he literally watches himself be born from his own perspective, which is just so absurd. And that's why he goes absolutely nuts. But
sense.
So Zeke has a breakthrough here, realizing like, okay, this is simple. All I really needed was the baseball. And he pretty much gives up. That's when they, in the past, start talking to all of the other
and they start
Titans.
switching. It's like his friends and the people who matter to him, like, I don't know, they're connected now, and like they switch sides. It's like,
but I love
magic schmagic,
whatever.
Like,
I love Zeke's ending though,
it.
because Zeke then appears outside of the body of the main Titan, just butt naked, just like looking around. He's like,
kind of enjoying
it feels
the
great
view.
out here. This is great. And then he screams over to Levi, who's like kind of flying the perimeter of the battlefield. Who Levi at this point got his arm or his leg bitten off, so he's kind of out of it,
really fucked
and he's
up.
mad.
He's like one of the badass characters.
The
of the
last
show.
promise he made to the previous commander was that he would kill the Beast Titan. So all he can think about right now is, I'm not going to kill this guy. Like, he's so mad. And then Zeke looks over, he's like, Levi, like, how's it going? And basically invites him and says, like, at this point, like, I know what needs to be done. And next scene, bam. Perfect anime, like sheath back sheath.
Yeah.
He's just
like,
heads off.
in his second, like his head off.
And
Blood, like
rumbling stops.
No dialogue, nothing.
Yes.
And it's just like, fuck.
Beautiful. But then
yeah.
that right there immediately stops the rumbling, because Zeke was the royal blood that Eren was currently
So he
touching.
needed the royal blood to be able to start the rumbling. So
Which
without it, he can't do it.
Makes me wonder, actually, when that centipede part comes, and getting back to that, like when she breaks off the head and the centipede comes off, if that touched Eren, would the rumbling have started again though?
Yeah.
Because so how does that work? Because there was still no royal blood involved. I was just confused about that when that happened.
I think that was the idea, that like Eren would start the rumbling, but maybe Ymir is royal blood.
Okay, so I guess they technically would have connected him back to that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that like it is interesting though to think that like Ymir is also controlling Eren and she is to a degree. And like there's the scene that we were talking about earlier where Armin and Eren are talking and they forget. What a great scene, by the way. Where he basically calls himself like he basically is like, I did this because I was stupid. I didn't know what else to do. Like and very human, like Eren, this character who has basically become like a soulless husk of a human being and is committing genocide and doing all this bad stuff. We see him as like a person again for the first time in a while.
And he actually like looks good because real quick, going on that, like
really
I saw Isayama like
up.
said this where he basically said like later seasons, Eren's hair is long as shit and he looks horrible. He just looks like a homeless
he's really jacked.
And it's, but it's because
but he looks like
basically
like,
and Isayama said that he at that point gave up on life. So he's just nothing.
Yeah, so we see him like normal again and him and Armin are talking. And but like he was like, I did this because I was stupid. I didn't know what else to do. Like I made like it's not that he made the wrong choice, but like I guess his choice was idiotic, and that's what he equates it to. And it's funny because like he loves Mikasa at this point, and they're kind of talking.
This is the best scene I think of the entire thing.
Like talk about going again. You're choosing to commit genocide, and now he talks to Mikasa at one point in the same situation, and when Mike was talking about how they like ran off and now all this violence is happening, but they're like out of the picture and they're living on this farm and they have their cozy life or whatever you want to call it, and Eren tells Mikasa like, you need to kill me, you need to live without me, you need to forget me, and he says that to her. It's very like adult kind of decision, right? Very adult.
This is not good for you.
Well, this is good. Just to give some context for this, though, the last time that Mikasa and Eren actually saw each other, Eren said, "I've always hated you."
Oh,
like literally, fuck
like
off.
To get away.
And then he beat up Armin as well.
Reason.
Yeah.
And yes, now this is the culmination of that, where he's like,
I was lying. I was trying to get you away from me. Right?
Yeah. And
it's like Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2. I don't love you, Mary Jane. Get away.
Yeah.
Fuck
it's
you.
the same thing.
Now get a load of this. Which is funny because Eren like has that exact turn where he just becomes like emo boy central.
But the scene though where Armin basically asks him like, why did you say that to Mikasa? Like you didn't mean that or whatever, or like what do you think? And Eren responds something along the lines of like or Armin says, do you think Mikasa can be happy without you?
And
like, why would you
he's
say
like,
that?
Why'd you say that to her?
And
like,
Eren's
like screaming.
I don't know. So Armin punches him in the face, and I think this is the best scene in the entire series.
Great. Yeah.
Eren then just starts crying like a bitch, straight up, and just like, no, like I want her to love me forever, even after I die. He literally says, at least 10 years, she better like cry about me.
Right. It's
and Armin's
really
like,
human.
What?
Yeah. and it's funny because he's like, that was pathetic.
Yeah.
Like he said like, and then he kind of like, it's funny in this really serious moment, in this moment of jest, like he has this like very funny like anime looking face, and he's like, well, she does know this like other guy, and he's talking about him. Like and just like fucking with him. Like I guess it's like, oh, like, well, like there's better. Like essentially,
fuck
like,
you. Yeah.
Like if not you. I'm pretty good.
She can do better.
Yeah, right, exactly. But in that moment, like again, like really serious, but like moments of jest in the writing.
Sure.
But then it kind of goes back to like Eren being like absolutely human and pathetic. From a moment ago, he's just like, yeah, genocide. And they have a few other conversations like that, and like and he tells him he ends up wiping out 80% of humanity. 4 in 5 people are dead. What you thought would happen, the war of reprisal will happen. There will be a war after I do what I do. There will be a war. The Paradis there's a faction in Paradis that they're called the Jaegerists, and they're basically the people who agree with Eren Yeager. And they militarize and they fight. And that's what ends up happening. And he's like, you're right. Like, there will be a war for reprisal. This will not end the conflict. And like Armin like grabs Eren by the shirt and he's like, how could you? Yeah. And he's like how, like, why would you do this? Mm-hmm. And he's like the acting in the dub, dude. It is so good. Like and he's like, I'm like, this isn't the answer. This is another nightmare. Like, and it like the way he I'm like, oh my god. Like I like it is like I'm curious how we'll look back on Attack on Titan, because people talking about like the greatest animes ever. Cowboy Bebop comes up a lot. Like I really think Attack on Titan will come up very often.
Yeah, I agree.
And especially since it's not like One Piece. It's not like 1,000 episodes long.
And these have been running concurrently with the manga? Or like is the manga ahead, like by a year or something like that?
So I finished them. I think it was 2 years ago when I read the manga.
I don't really
chapter.
know, like in the beginning stage of the manga, where the two were.
Okay.
But
It's weird. Like,
Attack
I mean,
on
if you
Titan-
look at One Piece right now, they're on like chapter 1,100 and something, and the anime is just starting the arc they're currently finishing in the anime. So basically like an arc behind.
It's somewhat, that makes sense. No, that
exactly.
makes sense.
And
So,
I think Attack was kind of like
Titan
that.
started in 2013. So I started it when I was in college.
You're saying the show.
The show. And now we're finished. So it was 10 years. 10 years, 4 seasons. I guess probably like 80 some episodes.
Yeah, it's like
So it looks like-
I think it's so. Actually, I forget. Can you look up the exact number of chapters?
Okay,
because
for what?
for manga, because it's
Well,
very
what
important.
did
It
you
actually
just-
is a
what did you just
symbolize.
look up?
I was just saying the actual manga seemed to start in 2009. So when you said
Wow, okay.
2013 was when the show started.
Yeah, and
that makes sense.
And I
Yeah.
guarantee the publication at
So,
some points was
It was a
long
monthly.
and-
It was a monthly manga. So
okay.
yeah, it was once a month chapters. So manga like that are very slow in terms of. So that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah, I wonder how they like even comics and manga,
But-
what kind of like release schedule they adhere to.
The reason I asked him to look up the exact number of chapters is I saw something recently where it said the reason why
139.
So the reason why I didn't get to 140, I'm pretty sure the number 140 has some sort of significance in Japan.
It says
for
there's an
freedom,
extra 2
and Aaron
side
never
stories.
got to freedom. So
Thank you for reminding me about that though.
So you saw that too?
Yes.
Okay,
But
cool.
not just that, but like Aaron's freedom. What do you mean by you're truly free?
Yes.
Because like that's Aaron's whole objective from the beginning, from the moment his mom dies, is he wants to be free. That's like his whole MO. And that changes a little bit because he learns more, but he wants to be free. He wants to. Aaron and Armin want to reach the ocean. They read about it in the books, but they never seen it. Nobody's ever seen it. They want to see the world beyond the walls. Like that's kind of like their whole, and that's kind of like the Scouts MO. The idea is they go beyond the walls to see what's out there, discover, kill Titans, obviously, but like. This sense of like adventure and exploration is kind of like deep in the DNA of these characters, and Aaron gets to the end and he's like, "No, I wasn't free. I was a slave to freedom. Freedom. I became so obsessed with it that it consumed me." And I really think like I've thought about it, and not to get like very political. I'll be vaguely, generally political.
I'm excited.
The idea of freedom is almost impossible. You have to essentially
absolute freedom, of course. Yeah.
right, but like you almost have to commit genocide, start beginning in your own image and whatever your ideals are, and then go from there. And then probably within that there will be violence and rebellion. Like it's just impossible.
So in terms of the freedom of
the idea
Attack
of
on Titan?
absolute freedom is
Well, of course, absolute freedom
an
is
illusion.
Absolute freedom is anarchy, really.
Right.
And that,
But
because that means everyone does whatever they want.
Right, but the idea of like, okay, well, like I guess Aaron's perspective is like we're gonna wipe the world. Parody is gonna be the only people to exist, and then we'll go from there.
So you got to look at it
Like,
though
that's
from
his goal.
his worldview growing up, and that's one of the most powerful aspects I think of the storytelling of this is growing up like their whole thing was, and Armin actually admits this in the end when he says, "I want to take responsibility for the rumbling too because I'm the one who told you that the world outside of the walls had rivers of fire and oceans." And basically they grew up wanting that exploration, and when they finally got to the edge and realized, wait, we're being trapped here.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything
in
shattered.
season 3, they get to the water for the first time, like all the
Yeah.
characters, and they're kind of like they don't, it's weird. It's like literally like a fish out of water. Like they just
Yeah.
don't know like what to do. Like, what, do we drink it? Like,
Yeah.
like
So when they realize that the rest of the world is keeping them there as prisoners, it destroys everything.
and
they
Aaron
ever
kind of
did.
knows all this at this point. He goes in the water and he points across, and he's like, so when we cross the ocean and we reach our enemies and kill them, will we finally be free? Like, that's what he says.
Right, right.
That's where he's at. And he like, he knows the truth, but he doesn't know everything yet, but he's like disillusioned. He like, and he like freedom at all costs.
Well, and he also realizes that
freedom
freedom has been systematically unobtainable for him over his whole life, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
he's never been able to reach freedom, whatever that means.
He thought he could. But
Which,
yeah.
in a way,
But he
you can
cannot.
look at
The
the
world is much more
absolute
complex than he originally
absolute ending that he kind of does. Like, I feel like it can be interpreted as that. Not to skip to the last scene, but the bird.
I mean, we're getting to the end.
Yeah, the bird flying. That I feel like throughout the entire series,
the bird
birds.
visualization. There's tons of bird imagery.
Yeah, and a bird like flies over as Mikasa's kind of just years later sitting at the grave, and
against the tree.
yeah, she like picks her scarf and like wraps it, and she says, "Thank you for wrapping the scarf around me, Aaron." And I feel like you can look at that as a symbolization of a bird is free because it can fly and it's not bound by the walls or anything. It
Right.
can go anywhere. So.
Yeah.
Does he get freedom? Kind of.
Yeah,
I guess.
Mikasa's scarf was given to her by Aaron when they were kids,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's kind of like a symbol of like the relationship. And she wears it until she dies. We see Mikasa like dead, old. She has she definitely moves on.
Gets
from
a
Aaron.
Titanic moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly right.
Very much
It's
so.
exactly right.
I mean, like we so like and I was talking about like the city becoming like futuristic. Like we see a few shots of the characters we know coming to visit the grave, but then like years later, it's like Mikasa with it looks like a family or a few generations of a family like coming to this grave. We see her dead wearing the scarf, so she really never forgets Aaron. She moves on, but she really doesn't. I mean, in any relationship, that would be pretty.
I was thinking that through the end. Watch it, but
there was a theory that how there's those flashbacks where John is with Mikasa,
Yeah.
and he like visualized. There's another character who I guess like thinks
And I would
Mikasa
be
is
okay.
hot,
Yeah,
and I guess he like has like a fantasy with her at one point when like the shit's going down and the on parody and like the rumbling's like just beginning and he's like just visualizing like a better
Right.
and. There's a theory that John does end up with Mikasa.
Yeah,
because
and I
he
can
would be
see
the only one to actually understand who Aaron is and the significance of him to her, that he could understand and like be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they could have a family and like, it wouldn't be weird.
Because otherwise, you have a
Here's
husband
my
and you're
shrine
getting.
to Aaron in our house.
Because it was just a weird moment at the end. Like if you think about it from the opposite view of that, of like if she has a husband and was being buried with her ex's scarf on instead. I'm like,
what's going on?
What the fuck?
But,
Come on.
Yeah.
but John, that would make sense, and I think it would be also funny too, in the sense that Aaron would be pissed about that.
Yeah.
which is great. And
How about
deserved.
the John and Connie moment when they're
That was amazing.
crossed arms? They get turned into Titans because they're Eldians, but so they like die but then come back. There's not a lot of deaths right at the end. It's 2013 when the show started. Game of Thrones was hot. Walking Dead was hot. Attack on Titan was also killing people left and right.
Oh my God,
one
it's
of those
ridiculous.
kind of shows, especially in the beginning. Like
Absurd.
you
Every
think
single 5
characters are
seconds, you're
safe?
like,
No.
what the fuck?
Yeah. So like the anime versions of
The only
those.
big one toward the end is Sasha, right?
Hanji.
Duh, that was amazing.
That's
too.
it.
That was
yeah,
amazing
and
too.
there is a scene where like for some reason all the characters that are in the scout regiments like come back and they're just standing there and they're like doing the scout salute, and Levi's like a scout and like, but he's not like all like hearts and souls for the cause. That's their motto that they end up saying a lot. And he never really does the salute. He never says it. And at the end, he like he puts he has 2 arms, but like he's like just like fucking beat his shit.
He's got
And
one eye.
He manages to put his
wrapped.
hand up to his heart, and he says, for the second time in the show, hearts and souls to the cause, or in Japanese, Shinzu Sasagyo, which is like, it's like, oh my God.
It's a great moment.
Yeah. It's like, yes. And John and Connie are back and they see Sasha. Yeah. And, but yeah, that was a cool, like, half-death moment, I guess, like the camaraderie those two have. And I guess really the ending, what the rumbling's done. Mikasa somehow gets back to parody. Don't know how that happens. How the hell does she get back?
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
It's a really good question. How does she cross the ocean?
And I will say, I think if I'm going to give it any criticisms,
She's just
I
like,
think that
take the head, get the hell out of here.
the ending could have been a little bit slower in terms of that because
Right.
also
the
I was
epilogue is quick.
yeah, and in terms of a couple unleft answers, in terms of Mika specifically, I'm confused onto one. How did Erin erase her memories? Because she's an Ackerman, and they never really give us the full aspects of that whole thing. Like, why is her headaches? And like, I thought she wasn't affected
Ymir.
by things.
That's Ymir.
Is the what?
The headaches.
The headaches. Okay. But the erasing the memories thing, I feel like they could have explained that a little bit more.
Plot hole.
Which fine. If
Fine.
you're gonna have
Yeah,
one
I'm
or
not-
two
I'm
plot
not
holes,
getting
I'm not
bent out
gonna
of
be
shape
mad.
about the plot hole. Especially when I like something, There's no point.
Exactly.
There's no point. There's no point in picking it apart.
It's just always sad though to see when something's so good like that, where it's like you didn't have to rush it. You had the time.
Yeah, but
you
like-
take it.
But the epilogue happens, so like Mikasa somehow gets back to Parody, but like she has Aaron's head, and it's like he's dead. Armin's like to the Marlene general, he's dead. We killed him. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. Like we don't show him like that. Just they need to like suppress the information for like kind of the good of the Eldians and Parody.
Well, at this point, they just got their memories back. Everyone realized that Aaron actually wasn't doing it for just to do it.
Right.
Like, they all just learned this. So
Right, so they're kind of like trying to like salvage whatever they can here. So the 6 of the folks from the Alliance, they kind of become, so they're stuck in Marley for a while, and Parody is, like I was saying, they're becoming radicalized. The Jaegerist regime is kind of taking control and power. Some of the old characters that we knew that are still on Parody, Hitch, like yawning when they're all like saluting, and like she's just following orders at this point.
Right, yeah.
But like it's clear that like the Eldians on Parody want blood. They're gonna fight Marley because of everything that's happened. And they're being sent back over to Parody as the heroes, the people who stopped Aaron, to be like, we're gonna stop this war from happening. We don't really know if that happens, but it's really
So
funny.
yeah, they're like the ambassadors. Essentially.
they're
That's what they're going
political
back as.
diplomats.
And they
Yeah,
make a
yeah,
joke about it
ambassadors.
as the reason they're not that scared is when they get there, the thing they're going to care about most is to hear their story as to why a group of these people who were bent to kill each other for the last entirety of everything are now coming here together to say we need to stop.
Right.
And
So,
I love
and that's
that,
how it ends.
I love that line when they're talking about like, we're scouts. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And then Annie goes, I was in the military police. Don't bring it up. And Armin's like, it's a good line. Yes, but no. Annie, so there's only one character. Annie is like part of the military police, was like the cushy military job. You didn't have to
Right.
go out and fight. You dealt with like, people, not
Titans.
Going out, being a scout was a death sentence. So the idea of joining the scouts was risky.
Right.
Not a lot of people did it. So it's the wall. Who are the people on the wall? What are they called?
There was 3. I can't remember.
The military police,
Yeah.
the scouts,
and there was
the,
another one.
Wall watchers?
They like
The watch?
They
No.
station. They're stationed on the walls. They have like the rows on their back. What
Yeah,
are they
I
called?
can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, I mean, and that's how tight Attack
They're
on
not
Titan
really
ends.
acknowledged at all for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah. What did you
With
think
that one
too?
scene with the tree, and then we see like the cycles of violence, the futuristic, the nukes, the war, and then it's all wiped out. And the last scene of the show, we didn't really mention. So Ymir at the beginning, the reason she kind of gets in trouble and she finds the Titan to begin with is because she lets these pigs out of this pen. Very simple.
Yeah.
She like these little cute little pigs are sleeping, and she lets them out, and the Ymir, or sorry, not Ymir,
King Fritz?
Fritz
Yeah.
sends like soldiers after her because she released the pigs. Like, we got to punish her. And she runs and she falls into this hollow in this tree, sort of like Alice in Wonderland kind of vibe.
Right.
And she finds that the centipede thing, and that's how she becomes the Titan. So Aaron's tree has become so big, and there's all these ruins around it and stuff. And this kid with this dog like wanders into it, and it's almost like, is this going to happen again? Like the cycle of the Titans is
It continues to just go.
right.
Yeah.
We don't really know,
Yeah.
what it means, or if the source of all living matter would be there, or like, whatever it means. Because it seems like the source of all living matter, the centipede thing, adapted to what Ymir like needed.
Yeah, in
Like,
the moment.
yeah. So it's like, okay, like this could turn out differently, but like, again, like all about cycles of violence. Another cycle is still, it still continues. Yeah. Attack on Titan, best narrative ever told. ever.
All right.
I've never seen anything quite like this in anything. Games, movies, TV shows. It's something special.
It's also especially cool from it being like a mainstream anime and manga where like, you know, you have the hero's journey being front and center in almost every one of them.
Right,
Like you can very easily compare Goku to Luffy to Naruto to, you know, Ichigo to whoever.
Luke Skywalker.
Well, yeah. Well, I was keeping it anime, but yes,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
That
you look
hero's
at
journey
Eren,
is-
and he is the hero in the end. You know, he did things for the right reasons,
Hero,
whatever, blah, blah, blah.
protagonist and antagonist.
But he was the big bad, which
Yeah.
was cool. And that's not something I feel like that's been explored more, as enough as it should.
That's an interesting turn. Like I couldn't even name a game that really
No.
turns your like what game do you play the villain and you're actually the villain?
That's like a game.
But you're
Yeah.
actually the good guy in the beginning. Like hardcore
Like-
Aaron
like-
is
like-
for
I mean,
the
there's not-
cause.
there's not
Maybe
a ton of things.
Knights
I mean,
of the
there's-
Old Republic. You kind of go
Yeah,
bad.
sort of. You can go.
I mean, I guess
bad,
you could
but,
also
like,
call it Darth Vader for
Yeah,
that
like,
too.
yeah,
but
Yeah.
like
in a different
game.
way.
It's not. It doesn't hit like Attack on Titan.
Well, again, I feel like there's
Yeah.
definitely movies that do that probably very well. I'm struggling to come.
But
to,
from a game, it's like the the gameplay perspective of like turning on like your comrades or something like that. Not really seen a lot.
No, yeah, it's more in RPGs, like you said.
Yeah,
I think
like-
Knights of the Republic is a good example in the way of like, yeah, you can you kill 2 of your allies by the end of that game if you
Yeah,
choose one way to
spoilers.
go. I never said which ones, but
Nah, for
Yeah.
a 20-year-old game, go fuck
yeah,
yourself.
and for a remake that we will probably never get.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. You
Didn't
just
mean-
had to throw salt in my wounds for today. Next you'll bring up Suicide Squad, but continue.
I did want to say that this is the first anime I watched in syndication. I've never
cool.
watched an anime as it airs. It started at the beginning and finished when it ended.
Yeah, okay.
So this
Interesting.
is like a first for me.
And how many seasons was this total?
4.
Okay, but yes,
Technically 7.
because
yeah,
these last
the-
parts
the-
were
the
like
la-
seasons
And
unto
I have to
themselves.
acknowledge that. I think that was the worst idea
don't
of
give a
all
shit. I
time.
love how
I
thrown
just
that was.
why would you do that? Like,
Did it just feel like weirdly broken up, or like did
no,
you?
it just felt like they were each their own season. But like, why are you marketing it as the final season every time? Like, it just was like,
Yeah,
come
it's
on.
funny because
think-
we were doing
come
this
on.
podcast, and I was
Yeah.
like, well, "Didn't we already do this one? Didn't you already finish this?" Like,
So when me and Chris Geddes were talking, we were talking about this when he was on here. We invited him on here, but he couldn't make it. Unfortunately, that would have been cool. When we were talking about like, I'm like, how do you feel about how they've been releasing this? And he was like, kind of like, yeah, I'm okay with it. I think that's what he said. And I was like, yeah, I know it's been like 3 years for the end of this one season, but like, I'm kind of liking it.
Yeah.
I'm like liking this ride out.
I,
It's really just been this big build up, not like like one and done. Like
Sure.
it did like just
No,
the
I was okay with the
longevity of
pacing.
it.
I just think like, why name it the way they did? Like,
Oh.
it should have just been season 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, it just.
maybe.
so
could
what?
you-
This is
could you
season 4,
justify a
part
se-
1,
It's,
or like
it's technically season 4.
The beginning of season
part
4
3.
right? Okay,
is a normal
Yeah.
show. Part 2 is a normal show.
Part
Part 3 and part 4 is where it
like
turns
TV
into TV
movies,
specials.
yeah,
Yes.
specials or whatever. Yeah,
Because part 3 is like an hour.
Yeah.
And then part 4 is like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yes.
got it.
So it's like, could you really make an hour and a half season? Like,
No, so yeah, technically it would have been like 6
but like I don't
episodes.
also want it to be like the end of Attack on Titan, the movie. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have liked that.
I probably wouldn't have watched it, honestly.
Yeah,
I've
that's-
never.
I
yeah.
hate that kind of marketing.
Yeah.
I agree.
With shows when they go like like
What, the
Community,
Mandalorian and
movie.
Grogu?
See, I don't think there's anything necessarily. Like,
Yeah,
what's
they're
like,
kind of. Yeah.
That's exactly
But
what.
like,
yeah.
what's bad about that? Like, like, why does that throw you
I
off?
just think it kind of
Because I don't think inherently that doesn't.
No.
That actually makes me more excited
I think
for
it's
like.
like
I think
movies.
when
Star
something
Wars is still
ends
different,
and
but
then
yeah.
it comes back with a movie. That's what I'm more referring to.
Interesting,
Like a show.
because like I got like because they were gonna do that Walking Dead movie too and stuff,
Yeah,
which is fun.
I mean,
but
they're
I don't think
fucking-
they even are doing that anymore.
Well, they are. It's a show.
oh,
The
right,
one-
that's what I mean,
those
but
are
they're
the-
not
the
doing it
ones
as a
that-
movie though, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
It's
so
a
that's
show.
what I-
It's coming
Yeah.
back as a show.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess like because innately I don't really see any problem with that, but I could see being like, all right, why are we changing up the
I think it's
format
just
so
like
quickly here?
we're bringing
Yeah,
this
I
back.
mean-
Is it could ruin it
Because I
Like,
don't want to say I'm actually more excited for Mandalorian and Grogu as a movie than
that
like, another
movie.
season.
By the way, that movie.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
I
I
guess
will
it's
not be
like-
watching it.
well,
but-
that's
but
fair. No,
yeah.
I totally
Mandel,
understand. Yeah.
the name sucks.
Well,
trash.
it's easily the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
I mean,
Really?
it sounds.
The Mandalorian part is fine, but like, and Grogu?
It should
like,
just be
we're
the Mandalorian.
But
I mean,
that
at
sounds like
point,
an I actually, it's grown on me. It sounds like an adventure novel. It sounds like a pulpy
you
bullshit
were
novel.
you were
that
with
these
me.
are,
What happened?
Because
I don't
I've
know.
grown a little bit. Because
You're
that
like,
sounds
yeah,
like a
Gooch,
pulpy
you're right.
1920s novel that you would
No.
name these for. I mean, think about like even Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Like
it
I don't
sounds
know.
like to me that they announced Rey and realized, what are we thinking? We need to come back before Rey with something else. And you know what? People like Baby Yoda. I
they
think
do.
that's
I mean,
actually
that's-
what they were talking about. In
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Well,
movie.
they
no.
apparently had it written, and we're gonna get. They had it
Yeah,
written
I
out
know.
as a whole nother season. But continue, Gooch.
Nah, it's
Let's
cool.
get back to tech.
I mean-
that's it.
What did you think though? We never actually mentioned the scene where she kisses his severed head.
Oh
that
my
was
God,
crazy.
We did not. Yeah. So when she goes to kill Aaron, she blasts through his attack titan, colossal titan's head through his teeth, and goes in.
That's how big he is.
Sure,
She
yeah.
literally makes a hole in his teeth like this.
And his tooth is like almost bigger than her.
Sure.
And she like looks at him with like this loving look, and you just see Aaron's like head like raise up, and the blade just kind of cuts his hair too, and goes through his neck and like severs his head, and then she like picks up his head and kisses his severed head. It's
I actually
very-
loved how that was drawn.
It's
in the manga.
it's very macabre.
Sure.
It is.
But like
They don't seem to be afraid to go in that
again,
direction.
we
That's
never
cool.
saw them be intimate at all, ever. No
Sure.
kiss. There was like 2 moments, like Mike was talking about earlier in part 3. There's this, or sorry, in part 2, there's this moment where Mikasa like they're talking like on a hill, and Aaron's like what do I mean to you, and she like doesn't know what to say, and she says your family. And that's like the answer Aaron wasn't looking for. I'm gonna go kill the world.
Basically, that's exactly what happened.
That's it, like,
Like, all right, well, fuck me.
because
Yeah.
the he said is like there's there's another timeline where you tell me you love me and we run away and none of this ever happens, and like that's not what
happened?
needed to happen.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot happened, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. a lot of yeah, but it like I was listening to an explainer video, and he was kind of talking about how he thinks the seeds of Aaron and Mikasa's romantic relationship wasn't laid properly, but I'm like, I think almost the lack of it not being laid makes it more impactful. Because they're not like sucking up to each other every 7 seconds. Like some relationship in shows that are drug out can turn into, it's like, oh, we get it. Just kiss, you know? Like Aaron and Mikasa like never really get to that point because the show is not dealing with their relationship.
No, and especially in the last section
the
of the
show is
show
so
is
much
chaotic.
bigger than love, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But funny enough, love was, I guess, the final theme of it, being the fact that Mikasa was able to break that. Like even though she loved him, she wasn't a slave to that love, and that's what it took for Ymir to essentially.
And she was okay with killing him because one of the things where the characters were like prepping is like, we may need to kill Aaron, Mikasa. You got to be okay with it. And it's
and
like,
every time she's like,
and she's like,
No.
like
I don't know. Don't do it to me. No.
yeah, and but like, and it's like like we'll kill him for you, like if we have to, like it's okay.
yeah, like you just do,
But
you
like,
focus on this.
You need to also be okay with it, and like that's kind of like a thing. It's like, okay, is Mikasa gonna do it, or is she gonna let it happen? Like what's gonna happen? Like, or is her feelings gonna get in the way? She's also a character who, I don't know. I think talking about her just in this hour is probably not really portrayed, but she's like an absolute badass. She's a fiend on the battlefield, like a fucking killer, dude. Like not a very stereotypical female.
And same with
character.
that Levi guy we were talking about. And that's why I mentioned to him, why was Aaron able to erase her memories? Because there's been this whole thing is they have a last name, Ackerman, that has that some sort of like strong power that makes them such badasses.
Sure.
Yeah, and they're like the only like Asians in Parody. They have like an Asian look to them, and everyone else is kind of like Anglo-Saxon looking with names and
Like
but,
Armin's
it's,
a blonde.
It's Armin, Aaron,
Yeah.
Mikasa.
Right.
Like Erwin, Sasha. Like they all have pretty normal names, and then there's like a few people.
Why are they more normal than the other names, Gooch?
Sorry. Yeah. Tell me. I mean, normal.
More Americanized names.
Because
American
what's the
name.
Asian clan?
Anglo-Saxon.
Abamito or
Anglo-Saxon
something?
names, yeah.
What?
It's Abamito or something, the Asian clan?
Azumabito.
Yeah,
and then, but then
Azumabito.
there's our only black character, which is funny. This happens in part 3.
What is that name?
Onyankopon.
yeah,
is
it
his
is.
name. Onyankopon. And a character asks literally, "Why are you black?"
Yeah, because they've never seen a black person.
Yeah,
right?
like in a very genuine way. And she's like, And I forget, he has like a funny comment to it. I forget what he says, but like Sasha is the character who says it to him. He's never seen a black person.
Yeah,
So
no,
like
literally,
she
like,
doesn't
yeah.
understand why his skin color is so dark.
Yeah.
And he like, I don't know if he like how he explains it to her. But I guess they like it's like basically like, hey, like, you know, like on the mainland there's tons of people like me. Like they're, you know, of all different shades and skins. It's like the world being open to this island that's been secluded is really like, you know, socially
They have no cultural reference for anything. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
exactly.
right.
Yeah, like they even go to and have like ice cream for the first time and stuff
right,
like
yeah,
that.
when
like,
they see the ice cream, and it's like, yeah, like,
The fuck is
like,
this?
Yeah, pretty
Nika's, in her cute little outfit has like 2 cones. She's like, here, Aaron, have some ice cream. And they're all like freaking the fuck out about the ice cream. Yeah. What?
Anything else, gentlemen?
I don't think
I think that's a good place to end it. Yeah.
I would love if I know we kind of like spoiled this whole show, but like if you in
It
3
sounds
months,
interesting.
you'll
Yeah.
probably forget
Oh,
all this.
absolutely.
And like I even think I think if you know the spoilers of the show and you started it up, I'm like I there's something to get out
What's
of
the
it.
total episode count ish?
In the 80s.
It's not terrible.
No,
it's not terrible at all. They're
half-hour
20-minute
episodes.
episodes.
Yeah, half-hour
20,
episodes. And now that everything's done, you can act. You know, you
Yeah,
can
you
finish.
just you'll
Right,
fly
yeah.
What a
right
concept,
through it.
No, it's
you know?
true.
Start
Wild
a show
stuff.
and finish it.
All right,
Yeah.
gentlemen. Well, thanks so much for running me through the Attack on Titan universe. This was actually very interesting. You got me. You piqued my interest at the very
Good.
least.
Very nice.
That's my job when Trio doesn't.
Absolutely,
do
or
the
vice
thing we
versa.
were gonna do.
Yeah. We gotta rope each other in. But thank you all if you've been watching. I should say with us live on twitch.tv/Delco Nerd Network. We really appreciate your time. You can find this podcast on any of your favorite podcast service. Just search Delco Nerd Network. We're on all the social medias as well at Delco Nerds on basically everything. We got a Facebook page, Discord channel, all that good stuff will be linked down below. You can find all this information on our website, DelcoNerdNetwork.com as well. And please feel free to email us, DelcoNerds@gmail.com, with any of your comments, questions, or concerns. We'd be happy to get back to you. If you could share, like, comment, subscribe about this, tell a friend about us. It always goes a long way. We really appreciate you guys watching every week. But for Gooch, from Mike, I've been Trio. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay nerdy, and we will see you next time.
Hearts and souls of the cause.